It was magic. It was the playground of summer.
Everybody would bring their picnic for the day and go and sit in the grove and have their picnic, and then they'd swim.
Driving on the road as we neared the park and getting butterflies in my stomach, and it's like, oh my God, we're here finally.
I remember going on the Comet, just keep going round and round. And the magic carpet, I remember the magic carpet going on that ride too.
The sucker stand. And watching all those suckers being made, it was one of my favorite stops.
I don't believe there is another park that has the same combination of American-Canadian history.
There's not a person that I know that did not go to Crystal Beach. I mean, everybody talked about it. It was a part of people's lives.
It's important to keep all of these memories alive because they are so unique.
This program was funded in part by Ted's Hot Dogs. From horse-drawn cart to 9 locations, the famous Ted's Charbroiled Hot Dogs still captures hearts and appetites. Nearly 80 years and 3 generations later, it's Ted's Hot Dogs. If you think you know Buffalo, think again. Surprise yourself. Visit Buffalo. And by Batavia Downs Gaming, America's oldest lighted harness track. Racino-style action. Home to over 600 gaming machines. And by the members of WNED. Thank you.
For 101 years, Crystal Beach Park entertained millions. Located in Ontario, along the shores of Lake Erie, it was the perfect place to spend a summer day enjoying rides and games, dancing in the ballroom, or relaxing on the beach.
Crystal Beach was such an important part of the lives of anyone growing up in the Western New York or Southern Ontario area. I mean, it was our park.
It was a day for the family at play. It was a day to celebrate. It was a day out in the sun and the fresh air, and it was fabulous.
Mother told us about going to Crystal Beach when she was a teenager. And she would be in one of the old full dresses with the padded coats and stuff. Give each of the kids a nickel, and they would run off. When the nickel was gone, they'd come back and get another nickel.
The roaring 20s, Crystal Beach really roared with the Cyclone roller coaster and other coasters there, and the boat ride over, the Crystal Beach boat, that was exciting. The 40s and 50s were really big. They arrived and arrived and arrived by the millions.
The war had a big impact. People were looking for a diversion. Crystal Beach was there. It helped ease the tension and all the turmoil that people were going through.
It was a fun place to go. And there would be the big Ferris wheel, fun house and Laugh in the Dark, and the Caterpillar and the Heyday and the bumper cars and the Cyclone and the big dance hall. And it was just, it was just amazing.
The train. I remember that era when it was actually a steam engine. Toot, toot, and chug, chug, and all this stuff. A space ride way up on a tower. Like it looked like the Eiffel Tower almost, with space cars running around it.
I can remember just being very impatient as we parked the car, walked back through the parking lot. You know, approaching the back of the Magic Palace with all the weird spires and roof lines.
The colors, the smells, the sights, just everything, the laughter, everything would get you going. It would work you up.
Hearing Laughing Sal laughing away, the Laugh in the Dark, battling against Charming Charlie playing his piano.
All the hawkers yelling for you to come over and try and play a game. And you would finally work your way over to the Comet roller coaster, where that was the king of the park. You go down there and you'd have a great time. And you'd come out of there tired because you were just moving so much.
I grew up with Crystal Beach, and I loved it, and I still love it. It was just magical.
Crystal Beach Park began as 3 plots of lakefront farmland, sold to, of all people, an American. John E. Rebstock, a successful land developer from Buffalo. When he first laid eyes on the beaches in Canada, his intentions were nothing more than that of a businessman.
His primary reason for buying it was the sand dunes. He wanted to sell the sands to Buffalo construction companies.
Of course, it's beautiful white sand, but there's silica crystals there. And when you see the sun on the beach, the crystals sparkle like diamonds. So it really was a crystal beach. It was gorgeous, just gorgeous.
It was the beach itself that inspired Rebstock to create a Chautauqua-like camp instead. That was, as he put it, for the spiritual and mental uplift of the common people.
He also allowed sideshows to come in. People seemed to like that better than the severity of the lectures. By 1890, the Crystal Beach, as we came to know it as amusement park, was in full swing. There were unusual type of rides. There were no seat belts, nothing to hold on to except each other.
Hundreds of thousands of people would come to the place. So you had a mixing not only of American and Canadian cultures, but you had a mixing of cultures from all over the world coming there. After Niagara Falls, you came to Crystal Beach.
For more than a century, the park was a principal character in the story of Western New York and Southern Ontario. Eventually, increased competition and other factors brought real financial hardship to the park, closing its gates forever in 1989. Everyone carries with them their own special memories of the park. For most Americans, those memories usually begin with a ride on a boat.
The best part was the boat ride over.
The boat and all the good times we had on the boat.
We used to dance on it, skip around. It was lovely.
The Canadiana. We used to go down the end of Main Street, like in 1943, and we'd go down there and get on the Canadiana.
Come down on a trolley in Buffalo down to the dock and load up the boat. 3,000-4,000 people sometimes got on that boat. You could get to Crystal Beach for 50 cents a return trip. That was the beauty of it.
They had the largest floating dance floor on the Great Lakes. Several big bands performed there.
It was kind of hard dancing and jitterbugging on a boat going across Lake Erie. You could go and get food and drinks. It was great.
The Canadiana was built about 1910. It was the sister ship to the Americana. They would run up to 6 trips a day, traveling back and forth from Buffalo.
The first boat would come in at 11 o'clock, and I'd catch the ropes for that. Everybody couldn't wait to get off the boat. And they'd all come over to the side, and the boat would tip over like this, and you think, why are people so crazy? What's the difference whether you get off 5 minutes ahead of time or not?
I was a mail carrier and delivered mail to the Canadiana and picked up mail from the Canadiana. Once I got the bag, I had to hurry because there were sometimes 3,000 people want to get off the boat into the park, and I had to be number one. So I'd literally run.
The most beautiful time was the 9:15 because it would be just coming into the sunset. And this great white boat would come all lit up with white lights because there were 1,000 lights on the boat. It was like a great white swan coming up the lake. I still dream of that some nights. It was absolutely gorgeous.
And what better way to go home from a day at a wonderful amusement park than by a nice, cool ride on the lake with the lake breezes and just having a chance to relax and calm down when you're entering the real world again.
There was so much to do and see. Many would start their day with a ride on the oldest coaster in the park.
My introduction to roller coasters was at Crystal Beach, and the first coaster that I can remember riding was the Giant coaster.
The Giant had the longest run of all the other coasters, from 1916 until the park closed in 1989. Estimates say that nearly 20 million people rode the coaster.
It really delivered a nice, quick little ride. A lot of my friends called it a good after-dinner coaster.
The Giant coaster was wonderful for little kids because it was safe and it was fast. Kids would ride the Giant coaster by the hour, you know.
A real throwback to the days of vintage coasters with fairly gradual hills, flat turns, but a lot of speed. And it had these wonderful big trains. They were like sofas, and you just sit there and bounce along on a thing like, you know, like anybody's business, and just have a lot of fun.
A lot of people said, oh, that wasn't, you know, it wasn't high, it was only 100 feet, and it didn't give a lot, but it really jumped up and down. It really was a lot of fun, especially without a lap belt. It made it feel more dangerous. That just gave a ride that I've never felt on any other roller coaster since. I loved it.
It was the swimming and the beach that was just the big attraction, first of all, and of course it's still what makes Crystal Beach really.
It's just a fantastic beach. One of the finest beaches, I think, in North America.
You could walk out a half a mile and you'd only be up to your knees. And it was all just ridged white sand underneath the water. So all the kids could play all day long, and their mothers didn't have to worry about them drowning or anything. Now, I learned to swim when I was 4 years old because I was out there puddling around all the time, you know, and eventually you're just swimming. Because it was so shallow, it would be 85 to 88 degrees. So you never got cold. You could stay in all day, and it was just heavenly.
Families came for the day, the week, or even the summer. And the neighboring village of Crystal Beach welcomed visitors with open arms into a growing number of restaurants, hotels, and summer cottages, season after season.
My girlfriend from Buffalo, we went for a walk up the beach, and Winifred said, "Oh, God, Fred, I come for 2 weeks. You have this place to yourself all the time." She said, "It's not fair."
People who weren't lucky enough to live there waited in anticipation for their own special day at Crystal Beach. Neighborhood days and corporate picnics were just a few ways the park drew large groups of people together.
Go Meadow Flower had their picnics at Crystal Beach. And the night before, we didn't sleep. We were up. There was like a big field where the employees could have softball games, and there was a racetrack, and there were bleachers where you could sit and watch them, and the company would give out, you know, prizes and stuff.
For neighbors, co-workers, or classmates, these special days left memories that last a lifetime. Memories of great times with each other, enjoying the magic.
The Magic Palace, well, many of the old-timers will remember it as the Magic Carpet.
Magic Carpet was pretty good.
That was one of my favorite things to go through.
The only way you could get out of there was to sit on the Magic Carpet and roll down the bumps and fly out the back door.
Of course, I was very young, but I did ride the carpet twice before it was taken out.
In the mid-1960s, they removed the carpet. From then on, it was called the Magic Palace.
It was a neat walkthrough. Of course, dark passages, you got in there, you couldn't see your hand in front of your face. Trying to negotiate the lily pads, and the slides in there were a lot of fun.
They had 4 different types of mirrors that make you look fat, skinny, and those were always fun.
The moving floors and the air jets blowing and stuff.
The air jet. Now, women that had skirts on were quite vulnerable here. When the lady stepped over this thing, the whoosh, the air went up and skirt went flying, and that was funny.
The Cyclone was probably the most terrifying roller coaster in the world, and even today still holds that title.
The Cyclone was a pretty terrible ride. That was my nickname. I called it the Terrible. It was really rough, bouncy, and really frightening, really scary.
My father rode the Cyclone once. He said he would never do it again. He got on it and it scared the bejesus out of him.
I rode it twice in my life, and believe me, that was enough.
It had a drop of 96 feet that was called the Spiral into Hell, because it didn't just drop straight down, it twisted at the bottom.
In the very beginning, they had thousands and thousands of people on it, but it started to decline because a lot of people got hurt. It had a tight figure 8 in the middle, and it would go one way, then it would flip and go the other way.
The track was literally on its side, and when you went into the figure 8, you were on your side, you were riding on your side.
They had to have a nurse on duty there while the ride was operating because people would faint.
Broken ribs, wrenched necks. My grandfather actually wrenched his neck on that.
The owners often said, well, they just didn't know how to ride it.
The Cyclone came into being because George C. Hall, the owner of the park at the time, asked the world-famous coaster builder Harry Traver for the roughest and meanest roller coaster in the world. He got it.
I think I was 10 years of age. My big brother said, "Are you man enough to ride on a Cyclone?" I said, "Well, yeah, I want to try." Guy didn't want to let me on. He says, "The kid's too small," you see. And my brother says, "Here's his tickets. You can do what you want with the tickets, but the kid's coming with me on the ride, okay?" So away we went. That to me was 40 seconds of pure terror when that thing took off.
You know, it seemed like 10 minutes when you're on it because it was so rickety. Our friend came from Silver Creek, and he had a brand new hat that he'd bought to come to Crystal Beach. They said, "Put your hat here." And he said, "There's no way I'm leaving my hat here. Somebody will take it while I'm gone." So he took his hat with him. When he came off, all he had was a handful of popcorn. The hat had completely disintegrated as he went around the car like this.
It was so terrifying. He had to carry me down the ramp because I couldn't even walk. And we got down to the bottom. He said, "You like that?" And I couldn't even talk. I said, "No." And he says, "You want to go again?" I said, "No."
1946 was the last season for the Cyclone. By the end of its run, it was losing money. More people were watching it than riding it. The Cyclone was dismantled, and using much of the same steel originally from Lackawanna, New York, it was time for Crystal Beach to build a new signature coaster. One that all would stand in line to ride.
You thought you were going to die on a Cyclone, but you didn't think you were going to die on the Comet.
Once I got on the Comet, I never stopped riding. It was my favorite ride in the park, and it still is my favorite roller coaster today.
The Comet was built along the former promenade so that it could be long, fast, and straight. which is exactly the opposite of the Cyclone, which was so twisty and turny.
First time I rode it, I was actually 6 to 8 inches too small to ride the ride. A gentleman was there and he measured me. He says, "No, you're too short. You can't go on the ride." My dad just kind of pushed him aside and says, "He's going on the ride." Screamed my head off the whole way. Couldn't wait to go again, and I've been in love with coasters ever since.
I was scared of the Comet when I was younger. The height of it, the people screaming on it, and the people coming off. I thought, I just can't ride that. Once I started riding it, I loved it.
One year, I went on the Comet with a girlfriend of mine 32 consecutive times. Guess we were cute blondes, and they just let us go and go and go for nothing.
I think riding along the lake made it even seem higher. It was about 15 or 20 feet off the water. And when you came down the first hill, you always thought, am I going to go out into the lake on this thing? You always felt that fear and danger. But that was part of the thrill of riding that thing.
Once you were old enough to ride the Comet, it was literally a rite of passage. You know, it's like you could brag to your friends, I rode the Comet this year, or this year I'm tall enough, I can ride the Comet. You were a bigwig after you did that. It was a big deal.
I did ride the Comet a couple of times, but for those of us who grew up and lived here, the rides were secondary. The most memorable times were the boat, the beach, and the ballroom.
The ballroom was the jewel of the park, just the architecture of it.
The ballroom must have had a planner that was way ahead of his time because of the expanse of the floor.
That ballroom, when it was built, it was the biggest expansive dance floor in the world that didn't have posts. There were bigger ones, but they had posts people would bump into. So it was people came from all over just to see the ballroom.
It brought in some of the best bands in the world to play in the dance hall down there, and that was an exciting place.
With such an expansive room, packed to the walls with as many as 1,500 couples dancing, it drew the likes of international performers such as Harold Austin, Jimmy Dorsey, Bert Niosi, and the Glenn Miller Orchestra.
There's never been anything like it. That big band era, the music was so gorgeous. I started working at the ballroom when I was 14. We were ushers, and we were very popular because the story was get to know the dance hall boys and then you can dance free. People would buy a ticket to dance. They were 10 cents, 3 for a quarter. And then we would take these tickets as people would come in. And they would come in, 900 people for one dance. There was one whole dance for 2 songs when everybody danced. And then there was a third number. And during that, 2 boys with ropes would start at the very front, and they would move out to the ballroom like this and sweep everybody off to the side. Everybody would stop dancing, and they'd all go down to the dock to watch the boat come in. And then they'd walk back down the boardwalk into the ballroom and start dancing again. So it made quite a wonderful night.
When I was about 10, we started to learn to dance. And at that time, the orchestra stand was in the middle, so you could go behind and hide, where nobody would see you learning to jitterbug or whatever.
I danced in the dance hall. One night, I went over with this bunch of girls, and my uncle knew we were going over, and he was handsome and tall, and he could dance. He said, pretend you don't know me. And the girls were all excited to think that this handsome guy would come up and ask me to dance. So I went and danced with him. And it was so wonderful. You just kind of floated, the floor, they kept it so beautiful. And it was just like being a princess in a palace. That's just what you felt like. It was a wonderful experience.
By the 1950s, baby boomers had toddlers, so they were bringing their kids to the park. Alan Herschel, actually the company in North Tonawanda, built Kiddieland specifically just for little kids. The Skyfighter, the helicopter, the Little Dipper roller coaster, the boats, the cars. Colors were bright. It was blue and reds and yellows. There were neon lights. It was a very bright and exciting time.
Crystal Beach had a really nice Philadelphia toboggan company merry-go-round. It had really great carved animals.
It had 45 animals on it, which was a variety of horses, a very ferocious-looking lion. There was a tiger. There was a wolf, which was a very rare piece. A dog, which was always very popular with kids.
From the time I was 6 months old, I rode the merry-go-round. And, you know, it was a wonderful merry-go-round. And, of course, they had the calliope and the whole thing, and they had a brass ring that you'd catch. Mother would sit at the side. You know, you go by on your horse and you wave at your mother, and she waves back. It was quite wonderful.
Laughing Sal sat in the corner of the Laugh in the Dark building. She was really an icon of Crystal Beach Park.
Some kids were scared by her, but this nonstop laughing woman with the awful dress and the bad hairdo was usually funny to most of us. My favorite character on the outside, though, was Charming Charlie. That was the skeleton that played the piano, which was, you know, a loop tape of, actually, it was Crazy Otto records.
The Laugh in the Dark was a pretty bumpy ride. You'd see this figure jump out at you with black light on it and screeching and hollering.
They had strings hanging from the ceiling that would go across your forehead that was supposed to be like spider webs.
Going inside this dark building in this car and just spinning in circles and hearing the chain buzz of the drive and having all these stunts pop up and the noises made you, I just thought it was fabulous. You don't find dark rides anymore.
The sound of the horn signified that the rides were going to close for the day. And it was time to go home.
Once the horn sounded, the lineup would form at the waffle booth, and the lineup would be there probably an hour past closing time. It would take that long to serve everybody.
Everybody wanted a sugar puff waffle. They'd come hot right out of the fat, and oh, they were gorgeous.
I've tried sugar waffles at every other park I've ever been at, and it never comes close to those.
You could smell those things frying forever. And I remember this one lady particularly. She always worked there.
She made the waffles, and she made them all day long from 11 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock at night, and right out in this little booth where everybody could watch.
The same lady was always there selling these sugar-coated waffles. And it was a great day.
All the candy and especially the Loganberry drink, the Crystal Beach drink.
I always have a glass of Loganberry on a hot summer day. That was good. That was a drink that was invented in Crystal Beach. They would just dip in the ladle and pour the glass, and it was so good.
There was Lobby's restaurant in the park, wonderful hot dogs and hamburgers, and they had a restaurant upstairs, and they served dinners there too.
And what better way to get kids to clean up than have a garbage can disguised as a full-size circus wagon?
Hey, do you know what that roar means, kids?
There was a suction machine inside that would suck in any kind of paper garbage. Kids would go and clear up other people's tables just to feed that mouth and watch the cups and the saucers disappear into the lion's mouth.
I eat paper plates too.
One of the sweetest treats is now synonymous with the name Crystal Beach.
Oh, the suckers were delicious.
The suckers, I remember grabbing the suckers on the way out.
The suckers, always leaving, right, getting a sucker.
Yeah.
Yes, I always liked the suckers. I liked the butterscotch suckers.
To this day, the cinnamon and the butterscotch. And the coconut are kind of neat too, because when you lick them and you get down the coconut pieces in it, make the thing kind of fuzzy.
They would make them on the marble thing and chop them up, and there you'd get this wonderful sucker.
So at the end of the day, we take all our tickets and we get all these suckers.
And it was a way that my parents use it. I know a lot of parents use it to get you out of the park. Let's go get a sucker now. So you'd go get a sucker. You didn't even realize you were walking through the exit. Next thing you know, you're in your car on the way home eating your sucker before you actually realize, wait a minute, I'm out of the park and heading home. Okay, we've got the corn syrup in there getting hot. We're going to add some water to the mix.
In 1989, Bob Steckley was running a small restaurant in nearby Ridgeway, where he continued selling the Crystal Beach sugar waffles. The demand was overwhelming. He knew he was onto something, and also wanted to offer the public the original Hall suckers. So he began to contact Bob Hall.
But every time I called, he said, no, the equipment's been in the family too long. It means too much. It's, too much history involved. I'm not ready to sell.
After several years, Bob Hall finally said yes, just months before he passed away.
Had the deal not been made when it was, my next call would have been in September or October of that year. It would have been too late. So the timing was just amazing when you actually, I got goosebumps talking about it, but it really was amazing if you knew the history that went into the number of calls that went in and the number of times he said no. We got the candy equipment back up here. Started making the 5 original flavors. The hot cinnamon probably outsells the others 3 or 4 to 1. Next is peanut, butterscotch, lemon, and coconut.
To accommodate the young customers of today, Bob has added a few new flavors. The equipment is original, the recipes are original, and Bob swears by the process.
So it doesn't look very green right now, so we're going to just put in some green coloring. And we mix that in. Okay, we got a blob going in this side, as you can see. When it comes out the other side, we got nice looking suckers. This machine actually is the same machinery that Bob Hall's grandfather bought in 1902. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
They're the best. When I used to go to Crystal Beach as a kid, I always had to go home with a cinnamon Crystal Beach sucker. So I have to get one.
Never like any others. Maybe it's just because it was Crystal Beach.
Crystal Beach, all year round. That's right, all year round. Nice and fresh.
I'll take 2 lemon, 2 cinnamon. Cinnamon? I got them all. I got lime, I got butterscotch, peanut. I think I got most of them.
Lemon or cinnamon, it's a draw. Of course, I got both, so.
Well, the kids, they like the colors, so they'll go for the cherry, the lemon, and pick the orange. And the older folks that remember Crystal Beach, they remember the peanut, the coconut, the butterscotch, and they grab those.
In Western New York and Southern Ontario, you can still enjoy the suckers, the waffles, and Kronfeldt's Loganberry.
It's Loganberry. That's the brand that they carried at the Crystal Beach. Any other Loganberry will not taste the same. How was it? Excellent. Thank you.
The Comet. It thrilled millions while it lived on the edge of Lake Erie. Luckily, this grand coaster would not meet the same fate as the rest of Crystal Beach Park.
Corner
The Comet sold for $210,000.
Did you set out today knowing you were going to come away with the Comet?
I set out hoping I'd come away with it. That's the fun of it.
How about the price you paid? Do you think you got a good deal?
No, I paid too much.
At Six Flags, the Great Escape theme park in Lake George, New York, the Comet would live on for a new generation of riders.
We were overjoyed when we found out that the Comet was back together.
Don and Carol rode the Comet as teenage sweethearts. They met again 40 years later and decided to get married on that same coaster. Every year, the couple returns to Lake George for an anniversary ride.
It seals our relationship for one more year.
Of course, at our age, don't know how many more years we're going to be able to ride a coaster.
Those who love the Comet don't mind making the short trip to see and ride it again.
It's such a fast, classic, sleek coaster. As an enthusiast, it just calls you back.
It's the first time I've seen it since '89. I'm so excited to be here and ride it once again. Wow.
I saw the movie Bucket List. I thought, I got to devise my own bucket list. So, number one, I put Ride the Comet Coaster, and here it is. I don't know, it's just new blood running through the veins. I want to get up there and ride that thing.
And are we ready to ride?
I always love coming back and seeing the Comet. It's like seeing an old friend, and I like to believe the Comet is glad to see us too.
This is still, as far as I'm concerned, in the top 10 of roller coasters of the world.
It is so nice to ride the Comet again. Out of about 300 or so coasters that I've ridden, the Comet is my personal favorite.
It's been a long time since I rode it. I was really shocked at how fast it went. It just flew.
Originally, I planned on one ride, and I figured that would be enough, one ride, but it turned out to be 5, and I loved every one. It's unbelievable that I'm here again at my age, which is 77. I just find it invigorating.
They don't have to be 150 feet or 200 feet tall to be a good coaster. This one delivers. I mean, once you drop down that first drop, it just doesn't let up.
It was a very special place. It became a part of people's lives. You went there with your families, you went there with your relatives, you met friends there, you met spouses there. That's the power that Crystal Beach has on people.
Crystal Beach was Canada's oldest amusement park. It's an important piece of history.
Somebody has to save Crystal Beach Park as far as the memories, or it will be lost forever.
So many people loved the park and had a good time, and we're keeping alive that memory of something that was very special for a lot of people.
It's the people that came to Crystal Beach that I remember so much. Friendships that the Canadian and American people forged all during that century. Friendships based on fun.
It was your youth and your young time, but it was also a happy time. The things you do when you're young are the things that you remember with pleasure.
This program was funded in part by Ted's Hot Dogs. From horse-drawn cart to 9 locations, the famous Ted's Charbroiled Hot Dogs still captures hearts and appetites. Nearly 80 years and 3 generations later, it's Ted's Hot Dogs. If you think you know Buffalo, think again. Surprise yourself. Visit Buffalo. And by Batavia Downs Gaming, America's oldest lighted harness track. Racino-style action. Home to over 600 gaming machines. And by the members of WNED. Thank you.